Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
Think of a gesture in a courtroom. They are literally having to make the royals laugh or their life is ended. So, like, their life completely depends on whether they can make this person laugh or not. Like, you could be the best thing one day and be beheaded the next. That's how volatile that kind of audience is. I guess we're really lucky nowadays we don't get beheaded.
Welcome to the Comedians in Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Emily Christensen. Emily, say hi, introduce yourself, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Emily Christensen. I am the owner and founder of the wellness practice Rainbow Raja, and I am also the founder of the podcast Rainbows Rising, which is an educational podcast for spiritual development and self-mindful tools.
You say it without confidence. You know, I do the same thing, right? I do stand up as a way to sneak in spirituality and light language. So.
Oh, really? That's
absolutely.
I love that.
I don't want people to think I'm some kind of, of course, right? That's kind of the key here. So
that's how we hijack the show. We just start speaking in tongues.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. I'm not even let's hold back.
All right, we'll do that at the end.
Yes, fair enough. Well, Emily, you ready to get started?
I am.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build, and we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. All right, so the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So Emily, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
I think we have different opinions on what a comic and a comedian is.
That's good.
I kind of feel like a comic is someone who is like a clown without the face makeup. They create structure for jokes that can be repeated in a lot of different formats. Pretty much their joke lands no matter the audience because it's pretty universal, pretty, I don't know, not controversial. And then a comedian is someone who develops their unique taste of comedy through life experiences.
I think we agree.
Okay.
I would just say that I would think that because if you do stand up and you're a comedian, you do need to tell jokes, right? Would you agree?
Yes. But in order to tell good jokes, you have to kind of have at least your content with the comic, you have one structure. With the comedian, it's more developing an entire set that works off of usually the region or the audience. You can kind of play things out in different settings, but for the most part, it's hit or miss, and your rhythm and how you deliver lines is really going to completely change the audience's interpretation of your jokes.
So I look at it as the two sides of the same coin, right? So that's kind of the one way. So you ready for the first question, Emily?
I am.
All right. So it's about the role of persona in comedy. So how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus the real self?
So I feel that there are different approaches. I feel
No
there
edits.
are. Oh my goodness, no.
No edits.
I feel there are different approaches to comedy, like there are for acting. So with acting, there are different acting methods, like Stella Adler, Steve Meisner, Uta Hagen. And Uta Hagen encourages an actor to use life experience to become the role. We see this in comedians like Fluffy or Dave Chappelle, who use their real life circumstances to reenact scenarios in a more exaggerated and engaging way.
So
Steve
you're the
Meisner,
first.
yes.
Sorry, I was going to say you're the first guest that said method comedian.
It's how they set their joke up. Like, Fluffy has a pattern. He has a rhythm. He's doing a lot of impressions, and it's a lot of storytelling. Dave Chappelle, he tells a lot of stories, but he has evolved through his career, but it is a little drier and a little bit more like matter of fact and straight to the point. Nowadays, it's more that. Back to kind of like how I see acting methods as different forms of comedy. Like, so with Uta Hagen, it's like you are yourself becoming this role. And then Steve Meisner looks at acting as like focusing on the relationship between the role, the environment, and the other actors. And this is kind of like crowd work. Like when we look at Matt Rife or Chris Rock, for example, they work off the energy of the exchange between the crowd and themselves. And they kind of leverage the spontaneity of the situation to get the best laughs. Stella Adler method encourages actors to use their imagination to create the closest living connection with the character they're trying to develop. So we see this with comedians like Jim Carrey and Robin Williams. They become this living embodiment of this caricature that they want to entreat the crowd with. Good comedians can harness their own essence and amplify it. You can develop a character that you play, but without emotional merit. You are just cosplaying, like a politician.
Wow, like a politician. So would you say that the Adler method is akin to channeling your higher self or other spirits?
I feel like it is in a way. It's so like the Adler method of comedy. I see it as like tuning into a particular trickster essence. So, you know, there's gestures of old. When we think of a gesture in a courtroom, they are literally having to make the royals laugh or their life is ended. So like their life completely depends on whether they can make this person laugh or not. Like you could be the best thing one day and be beheaded the next. That's how volatile that kind of audience is. I guess we're really lucky nowadays we don't get beheaded anymore, right?
Well, speaking of foreshadowing, so how about punching up versus punching down? Since you're real research for everyone else, so where do comics versus comedians stand on this? And let me put in some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
That's actually I was prepped for this interview with your questions. And the way that I read that, I did not understand, but hearing you read it back, I'm like, that's actually what a great story plot. We haven't seen that movie yet. Are you in the makes for writing that cinema?
I think we have. I think it's like one of those deleted scenes from
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah. It's kind of like
no, wait. I'm not gonna be mean. Never mind.
What? Please do.
I was gonna be like, I guess Joffrey was the jester. Kind of gets killed off there for a bit, don't he?
Yeah, exactly. It's there. Like it's in the milieu, if we could say. So is criticizing dead people considered punching down?
Into the dirt, 6 feet down.
That's right. That's the kind of thing you would get beheaded for in the court, right? They'd be like, "What? I'll figure it out."
They'd be like, "We don't dig holes. We just drop them into the ravine."
Exactly. Exactly.
So back to a more serious point. I feel that the only way to become a comedian is to be bullied in some regard.
Okay.
So comics tell
Victimized.
jokes for attention. Comedians tell jokes to take the attention off of how traumatic what they just said actually was. You become a comedian pointing out simple, blatant truths, whether personal stories or societal patterns, and then the humor spawns from how normal or light they made that truth sound. So it's kind of ironic that something so obvious ends up kind of creating the laughter point for the crowd, because most people, once they look at the joke and they're like, oh my gosh, that point was so obvious, how did that elude me for so long? But like, that's what makes the laughter so strong, is when you can get a point across so simply.
I like the way you put it. It's a very kind of instructive way of creating a joke, basically.
So
So that's
comics
helpful.
developed targeted comedy as a power move to give them more leverage to getting the attention they desire. When you do a power move, it is a matter of positioning yourself in a way that others might see you as having an advantage over others. Whether that's up or down, that's actually determined by their psychological conditioning, and to determine how they want to position themselves to get the best advantage with the people they're trying to win over. But only people with little to no power are the people who have to punch other people. I prefer punching myself, because nobody can make me the butt of their joke if I can do it better. Also, it's safer, because if I offend myself, HR will never get involved.
Now, well, if you're a protected class and you're making fun of yourself within the class, then perhaps they will.
Dude, I am a white person.
You're right. That one's pretty easy. You're right. I would do it all the time as a straight white guy. I would just make fun of straight white guys. Definitely no
Exactly.
one's complaining about
No one
that.
will complain, because even the straight white people are usually trying to take down their own race in order to protect all of the other minorities.
So then I do have to watch out for that, but usually that's not HR. So, all
No,
right.
that's not HR.
So how about cultural translation of comedy? So how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Well, comedy depends on shared assumptions. You can go to one corner of the world and do a set about sending your falcon to murder your neighbor because he has more goats than you do, and it kills, literally.
Yeah, this sounds like you heard this joke. Someone told it in a certain country.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You try that same set in Seattle, though, and, an animal rights activist is going to file a lawsuit before you reach the punchline.
Yeah. Well, unless that's what the joke is about. So then how does the silence when your joke doesn't land hurt physically, emotionally, morally, or spiritually?
Well, silence can always be played on. You don't
Right.
have to wait for a response. You can keep going as if it was planned. Sure, it can hurt, but you shouldn't be in comedy if you can't take a joke. Sometimes that joke is you. And that's part of the job. You have to be physically, emotionally, morally, and spiritually prepared to be torn apart. Back in the early days of comedy, if a crowd hated you, they'd throw a rotten tomato in your eye or literally drag you off stage with a hook. Now, the worst thing that can happen is you become a worldwide meme, which means your entire career might be defined by that one moment of bad judgment, like deciding to become a comedian in the first place.
Oh, wow. If you're lucky, you can be judged. So, very important question. Advertising and self-promotion. So, who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Well, historically, magicians, they used circuses and large venues to travel and to market themselves, and they had to fill entire stadiums. Modern times, the comedic, once again, because it's about attention. I mean, look at Donald Trump. However, if you're a good comedian, you don't need to advertise yourself. The audience will do that for you.
So I'm not picking on the words you used, even though I'm about to. You said comedic instead of comic. Is that intentional?
No.
Okay. Well, maybe it is in a kind of subconscious way.
It's probably, I find Trump kind of comedical.
Right.
He is a comic because he says things that he means in such a straightforward way. And that's what's so funny about him, because it's like, is it planned? Is this really just all a comedy act? But he says it like deadpan. He's like, yep, you guys should start eating hand sanitizer.
But doesn't that make him a comedian in a sense because of the originality of it?
Maybe. Or maybe he's serious and we just make fun of him. I don't know. That's the fine line. It's not like he's advertising himself. I
think he's doing he's taking the Adler method, I think, is what's happening. He's literally taking, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, he was born the Adler method.
Right. I'm sure it evolved as on top, but I definitely can see he's intentionally doing that. So how about censorship and offense? So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that real quick? I had a lapse I have MS, so sometimes my brain does this thing where it like edits things, and I only got half of that sentence.
Maybe your edit's better. So far, it sounds it's pretty much on point. So when you censored it, basically the topic is censorship and offense. So you just censored yourself. That's what happened, right? You self-censored.
Yeah.
Okay, so does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
To be perfectly honest, I think comics avoid offense because it won't get them the attention they truly want. They want laughs. They don't want fights. They want people to like them. They don't want people to cancel them or hate them. Comedians use offense to elicit this emotional response that they can then ride like a wave, because they have to have the experience of life to guide them through their jokes. And then that's how you can play it off as if it's, it's just part of the joke. Magicians offend for shock and divert attention to complete their tricks. If you don't distract the audience, they will see through the illusion. So comedians entertain with truth, comics entertain with jokes, and magicians entertain with lies.
Okay, so I like the way you're describing it. It seems like the comedian is the one that's most in control. It sounds like the comic is probably the least in control of the situation. Would you agree?
Yeah, because if a comic comes with a particular joke, like knock knock.
Who's not there?
Exactly. If the crowd doesn't respond the way they're anticipating, if it doesn't go to the formula, it doesn't hold up. Right. If you are trying to get someone to, say who's there to a knock knock joke and they don't, you can never get your punchline across and you're stuck looking like the joke. Whereas a comedian would play it off and just make up their own material because they don't need a script.
So just to double click on that, you were saying that the offense is actually the tool that the comedian is using to generate the humor?
I believe so. I know that for me, when I don't do stand-up as much as I would like to. I've always kind of done, I use laughter in my sessions because laughter is the best medicine. So I use laughter in my podcast, but it's it's always as a way of like trying to connect with people more than divide people. And you can use the, I guess, the offensiveness of certain jokes as a way to kind of drive people to a frame of mind that would help them see something from a different perspective. You can, like, one of your questions is about philosophy. You know, you were like, do you, philosophy or preacher, right? And so going to that, it's like the preacher convinces people what to think, whereas the philosopher makes you question what you think, which then leads you to enlightenment, right? And so I feel like a good comedian who really truly wants to have some greater purpose for what they're doing, they're going to take philosophical approaches to help the crowd deconstruct their way of thinking. And
so would the
if
comic
they're
be a
able to make you
preacher?
laugh, no,
Okay.
because they're not directly telling you what to think. You know, for example, you know, you could be like, oh yeah, the UFO files are out soon. You got, you know, look under your seats, everyone. Look under your seats. You got a tinfoil hat. You got a tinfoil hat. You got a tinfoil hat. Everybody join Scientology so we can be beamed up with the best of us. Tom Cruise giving out free autographs. You know, like, that's kind of a preacher approach. And as you can see, for you, you're kind of like,
well,
it just doesn't land if you mean it. If you truly mean it. If you are trying to get people on Scientology's boat and you're joking about it, people aren't going to jump on Scientology's boat because they won't take it seriously. A preacher has to take what they're saying seriously. And if you make a joke out of it, then the crowd's not going to think it's very, you know, that they also shouldn't subscribe to that. But if you can make a joke out of a philosophy and make somebody laugh while questioning their frame of mind, they are led to the conclusion that you're trying to get them to without hand-holding them there. It's kind of like mind bending someone with humor.
I like the way you're describing it. So then who survives better in the cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
Well, I believe that the comedian does because he's already survived the first wave of cancel culture, his childhood.
Oh dear. Good setup.
Thank you.
Good setup. Speaking of, so Emily, are you ready to enter the multiverse?
I've been there. I've been there, done that, but you know, I feel like a lot of which multiverse are you entering with me? Because if we don't get this honed in, we're gonna end up on different verses, and I'll end up with Jerry, and Jerry's gonna be like, "Thank you so much for joining me on the roast beef podcast," and I'm gonna be really confused.
Roast beef. Is this a Subway reference? So you have to choose an avatar. That's the key here. So board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. So you have to choose the avatar. If comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist avatar, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist avatar, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
My name is Rainbow Raja. I'm obviously a colorist.
Okay. So then does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
Ideally, you want both, because that would be like asking.
Now, this is the multiverse. This is where you get lost in the multiverse if you don't choose one, because they don't already exist simultaneously.
Okay, so I can only pick one or the other.
Well, if you don't want to get lost in the multiverse.
Okay, well,
I totally reframed it. A lot of people miss that.
Well, the way I see it is, that's kind of like asking someone if they want a perfect pizza but it's raw, Or do you want a random pizza with a lot of bizarre toppings on it? And
Perfectly cooked.
to be to perfectly cooked, perfect size, delivered to your door, ready to go, right? But to have a
random.
truly balanced set, you need structure, you need flavor and delivery, or else you just end up alone at home with no pizza.
So that would definitely be painted vividly then.
It would. It would.
Okay.
I would want things painted vividly because what's life without color?
Well, it could be sound only.
Well, for a blind person, that is what life is for them.
Maybe there's more, especially in the multiverse. They could see other things. But we're not going to go too far. Too far into there. This is the problem with the multiverse is you can get easily lost. So here in the Comedians and Elevators podcast, we have a tradition where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. And the previous guest was Scott Crawford. And his question for you, Emily, is, do you feel it's better to stay in LA to do your stuff or travel the States? And I'm sure you can replace LA with wherever you'd want to live.
I lived in LA. I lived in LA my whole life, actually. And I can tell you, as an LA native, that area is so saturated. It is so saturated with people who come from all over the world wanting to live the Hollywood dream. And even having someone, I have family in the business. Terry Garr was my godmother. And I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger was my babysitter growing up. And I still couldn't make it in LA. So I can tell you, sometimes the best way to make it is off your home turf and to go find bigger ponds with less fish to fight over the stage.
Yeah, definitely LA and Hollywood. It's a very strange environment, to say the least. So I don't think it's conducive to even what it's producing. But we'll leave that alone. So, right? So the future is bright from that perspective if we just let that go. So, last question, legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics' tight five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
I think if we look at all of the greatest comedians of all time, all the best comics of all time, what we truly remember is like who they were at their core and how they presented themselves. You know, Robin Williams is such an unforgettable persona, and the impact he had on our culture like transformed an entire era. And I only use him because he is recently deceased, and like we all felt the loss of that legend, right? And we can look at other comedians, but it's like it always comes down to how they kind of translated their soul into this art form. And I think that does come down to a cultural point of view, because how they experience life developed how they, I guess, interpret their jokes and themselves on a stage.
Okay. Well, so they're generating a legacy at the moment that they're judging? Is that what's happening?
I think I don't think they're judging themselves. I think of course you're going to have comedians who get on a stage and are going to judge themselves, but they're not going to be the successful ones. It's the ones that get on the stage and don't give a rat's butt who judges them at all. And they're just like, hey, I'm here. What do you think? You know, like, you either like me or you hate me. That's just who I am. You can, you know, whatever. So I feel like that's what we remember, is the ones who are bold enough to get out there, be their unfiltered self, whether it's ugly or messy, but it's them just being their childlike self.
All right. I'll call it focused filter, right?
Focused filter.
Yeah, if you're going to be your childlike self, you got to focus on being your childlike self, right?
That's right.
All right, Emily, where can everybody find you online?
You can find me on my website, at www.rainbowraja.love. Or you can find me on YouTube at Rainbow Raja, or on Instagram at Rainbow Raja, or Facebook at Rainbow Raja. Pretty much everywhere at Rainbow Raja. RAAJA.
All right. Well, awesome, Emily. Thank you so much for being my guest. And for everyone, please like and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. If you're interested in too much information like in the network state or Mantipus the chicken shit, check out this video. Or is it this one right here? Well, either way. Lizard.